Okay, so we've got a really interesting deep dive lined up for you all today. You guys sent in like a ton of stuff about Prajakta Koli's new novel, Too Good to Be True. And, well, let's just say we're ready to dig in.
Yeah, you weren't kidding about a ton of stuff, but hey, that just means we've got a lot of great perspectives to work with, which should give everyone listening a pretty solid grasp of what this book's all about.
Absolutely. And speaking of Prajakta Koli, she's, well, kind of a huge deal online, right? I mean, if you're on YouTube, chances are you've seen at least one of her videos. She's got this amazing knack for creating content that's super relatable, often hilarious, and honestly, she's not afraid to get real and tug at your heartstrings a bit.
Totally. She's known for that emotional honesty, and it sounds like she's brought that same energy to her first novel.
Right. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. So think of this as like your cheat sheet to Too Good to Be True. We're pulling out the key themes, the aha moments, all the good stuff without getting lost in, the weeds. So first things first, for those who haven't already devoured the book, what's the basic premise here?
So, at its core, Too Good to Be True is a coming-of-age story set in India. It's about this young woman named Prachi who is, like so many of us, just trying to figure things out. We're talking love, friendships, the whole shebang. And of course, family expectations play a big role.
Oh yeah, family expectations, especially in, South Asian cultures can be, well, intense sometimes.
Hmm.
That definitely adds another layer of complexity to Prachi's journey.
Yeah.
And from what I've gathered from the stuff you sent in, it seems like this tension between personal desires and family expectations is a major theme in the book, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's this constant push and pull between what Prachi wants for herself, what she's passionate about, and what her family and even society in general expect from her. It's like this universal struggle, isn't it? Trying to honor your roots and traditions while also forging your own path.
It is. It's something so many of us can connect with, whether we've experienced it directly or seen it play out in the lives of people we know. And, it's not just about specific choices like career paths or who you marry. It's about that deeper search for identity, that question of who am I supposed to be versus who do I actually want to be.
Exactly. And that's where the book really shines. It dives headfirst into Prachi's journey of self-discovery, showing us that it's not a straight line. There are bumps in the road, wrong turns, all that. But ultimately, it's about learning to embrace who you are, flaws and all.
And that's such an important message, right? That we don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love, happiness, and all the good stuff that life has to offer. Now, it seems like Prachi isn't going through this alone. I mean, her friends seem to play a pretty big role in her journey. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the sources really emphasize the importance of Prachi's support system. Her friends are like her rocks. They're the ones she can turn to when things get tough, to vent, to get advice, to just have fun and forget about her worries for a bit. It's that whole found family concept where the people you choose become your closest allies.
I love that. Found family is so powerful. Having those people you can rely on who truly get you can make all the difference, especially when you're navigating those tricky waters of young adulthood. And speaking of navigating tricky waters, what about romance? I mean, you can't have a coming-of-age story without a little bit of love and heartbreak, right?
Right. The source definitely touch on that. It seems like the romantic relationships in the book aren't just about finding the one. They're about exploring themes of trust and vulnerability, about learning to be open and honest with someone else, and just as importantly, with yourself.
I see. It's not just about that surface-level attraction. It's about the deeper emotional stuff. Learning to trust, to be vulnerable, that's all part of growing up, figuring out who you are in relation to others.
Definitely. And what's really interesting is that the sources suggest that Prachi's ability to have healthy romantic relationships hinges on her own self-love. It's that whole idea that you need to be comfortable with yourself, accept yourself, before you can truly connect with someone else.
That's so true. You can't pour from an empty cup, as they say. So Prachi's journey seems to be very much about finding herself, accepting herself, and then allowing love to come in.
Precisely. Now let's talk about the title for a second because it's kind of a big clue, right? Too good to be true. It almost feels like a warning, like Koli is hinting that, well, things aren't always as perfect as they seem.
Yeah, it's like she's acknowledging that life is messy, unpredictable. You're not always going to get that picture perfect ending, and maybe that's okay.
More than okay. The sources seem to be saying that the book celebrates the beauty and imperfection, that real life, with all its twists and turns, is actually way more meaningful than chasing some idealized version of happiness.
I like that. Letting go of the need for everything to be perfect, that's a powerful idea. So we've talked about this story, the themes, But what about the book itself? What do the sources have to say about, what makes this book stand out? What are its strengths?
Well, everyone seems to agree that Coley's narrative voice is a huge plus. It's described as super relatable, authentic, and just plain engaging. You really feel like you're in Prachi's head, experiencing everything alongside her. And a lot of that probably comes from Coley's experience as a content creator. She knows how to connect with an audience, how to make them feel seen and heard.
And that's so crucial in a story like this, right? You want to feel that connection with the main character, understand where they're coming from. And what about the cultural aspects? I mean, the book is set in India. Did the sources mention anything about how that factors into the story?
They did. The cultural insight is actually another major strength. The book offers this really nuanced portrayal of Indian culture, from family dynamics to societal expectations, which adds so much depth and authenticity to the narrative.
So it's not just a backdrop. It's woven into the very fabric of the story. And, even though it's set in a specific cultural context, the themes of identity, acceptance, and love, those are universal. Everyone, no matter where they're from, can connect with those ideas.
Definitely. The sources really praised the way Coley handles these emotionally resonant themes. It's all done with such warmth and sensitivity, making the story both relatable and truly heartwarming.
It sounds like she's got a great balance between, being insightful and thought-provoking
Hmm.
while also keeping things light and engaging.
Absolutely. And that actually brings us to another strength that was frequently mentioned, the humor. The book is sprinkled with these genuinely funny moments that prevent the story from getting too heavy or preachy.
So it's not all doom and gloom. There's lightness, there's laughter, which makes the more serious moments even more impactful.
You're right. Okay, so we've talked about all the good stuff. Now, for the sake of balance, we should also address some potential areas where the book might not fully hit the mark for all readers. What did the sources have to say about that?
Yeah, let's talk about that. No book is perfect, right? So what are some things that some readers might not love?
Well, one point that came up is the potential for predictability. The plot, while engaging, might feel somewhat familiar to readers who've read a lot of coming-of-age stories. There are certain tropes that the genre tends to rely on, and some readers might find those a bit too, well, predictable.
That's understandable. Sometimes you just want something completely unexpected, right? But then again, even if the overall plot structure is familiar, a fresh perspective or a unique voice can still make a story worth reading.
Totally. Another potential drawback for some readers might be that the romantic relationships aren't the main focus of the book. The emphasis is much more on Prachi's personal growth and self-discovery, so readers who are specifically looking for a romance-heavy novel might not be completely satisfied.
So it's more about the internal journey than the external romantic arc, which makes sense given that the book is all about self-discovery.
Yeah.
And what about the writing style? Did the sources have any opinions on that?
Yeah, some mentioned that the conversational, youthful tone of the narrative voice, while charming and relatable to many, might not be for everyone. Some readers might prefer a more formal or literary style of prose.
Right. It really comes down to personal preference.
Yeah.
Some people love that informal, chatty style, while others prefer something a bit more, I don't know, sophisticated.
Exactly. It's all about what you're looking for in a reading experience. So to sum up, the book has a lot to offer, but it might not be everyone's cup of tea, and that's perfectly okay.
That's a good reminder. Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the bigger picture. What kind of impact do the sources think this book might have? What kind of legacy could it leave behind?
Well, many see Kohli as a fresh and exciting voice in contemporary Indian fiction. She is representing the experiences of young Indians in a way that feels authentic and relatable, and because she has such a huge platform, she has the potential to reach a really wide and diverse audience.
It's about giving a voice to experiences that might not always be represented in mainstream literature.
Right.
Especially the inner lives and struggles of young women in South Asian societies.
Mm.
It's about showing the world that these stories matter, that these voices deserve to be heard.
Absolutely. And Kohli's success is also a testament to the power of digital platforms. She's proof that you can build a career online and then transition into traditional publishing. It's a really inspiring story for aspiring authors and content creators.
It really is. It shows that the lines between those worlds are blurring, which is really exciting.
Okay, one last thing before we wrap up. Your sources included a list of books with similar themes to Too Good to Be True. Could you give us a quick rundown of those?
Sure. So there's The Zoya Factor by Anuja Chauhan, which also takes place in India and has that fun blend of romance, humor, and family drama. Then there's When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon, Another YA rom-com that deals with themes of family expectations and self-discovery, which, as we've discussed, are big themes in Koli's book as well.
So if you love those kinds of stories, those might be worth checking out.
Definitely. And for those who want to dive deeper into the complexities of family and cultural identity, there's A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza. It's set in an Indian-American context, but it explores some similar themes to Koli's work.
So that's for those who want something a bit more, I don't know, serious. Yeah, something with a bit more weight to it. And then there are a couple of books that, while not specifically set in India, touch on similar universal themes. There's John Green's Turtles All the Way Down, which is about a young woman struggling with anxiety and self-doubt. And then there's Frederick Backman's Anxious People, which is, well, about a bunch of anxious people, but it's also really funny and heartwarming and explores themes of human connection and imperfection.
So there you have it, a whole list of books to add to your reading list if you enjoyed Too Good to Be True. Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive, what are the key takeaways here? What do we want our listeners to remember?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Too Good to Be True offers a fresh and authentic take on the coming-of-age story. It's set in a specific cultural context, but the themes are universal, exploring the challenges and triumphs of finding yourself, accepting yourself, and building meaningful relationships. And all of this is done with a great balance of humor, heart, and insightful observations about the messy realities of life.
Well said. So as you go about your day, think about Prachi's journey and that title, Too Good to Be True. What expectations are you holding on to that might be, well, a little too good to be true? And how might embracing the imperfections of life actually lead to greater happiness and fulfillment? Think about it. What resonated most with you? What parts of Prachi's story did you connect with? Maybe that's something to ponder as you move on from our deep dive today. Thanks for listening.